Welcome to Seekers and Finders, the podcast where we explore the infinite pathways to truth, creativity, and connection.
The National Film Board was really interested. And I told them about my aunt, and they wanted me to get an interview with Alo. So I arranged, so this guru had just passed, and I had arranged to get permission to go to New York so that I could interview Alo. And she was like, yes, you can interview me. I'm not gonna, ask you any questions you're not comfortable with. You can even have final edit, yada, yada, yada. And so I get all this equipment and Ashrita is like on board. And anyway, I get to New York, and then all of a sudden there's this wall, and they're like, and I'm in my hotel room and I'm ready to the next morning to go interview Alo. She said, come to the tennis court. You can interview me. And then I get a phone call, and she's like, I'm sorry, but I don't think an interview is gonna be good. And I'm like, why not? She's like, well, some of the guys here are telling me that it's probably not a great idea. So anyway, they got to her. So she said, come to the park and let's talk about it. So I go to the park that's next to where the restaurant was. There's Alo and Savisachi, and they basically said, look, we don't think it's a good idea because, the wrong message could come out. These documentaries can have a certain point of view that's not favorable to the center and stuff. So they basically shut it down, and I didn't get the interview with Alo. It was very disappointing. I also started to feel like that the word started to spread around that I wasn't cool. So all my old friends who were still in the center, I was supposed to interview some other people too, and they started to bow out, and then other people started to treat me, and I just started feeling that awful feeling of just like, wow, this is not really a loving place. This is a place that's just trying to protect.
Talking to today is another one of our old guru buys from the old days in the Sri Chinmoy Center in the early 70s. We spoke to Ethna Heron yesterday, and we have spoken to several on our series today. We're speaking with Harry Rob Bruner. I knew him as Guranga in the center, the Sri Chinmoy Center, back in the day, 1970s. So what I like to do when we talk to our Guru Bhais, our old guru related buddies, is find out a little bit about where they've been, what they've done, and where they're going. So fill us in, Harry, give us a little background on your whole
Yeah, you guys were like uncles to me, I was 12 years old when I first.
That's right, you were a young guy.
When I first joined the center, my aunt, Alo Devi, as we called her, Esther Siegerman, my mom's older sister.
I thought it was Beverly Siegerman was your aunt.
Beverly Esther Siegerman, yeah.
Oh, Beverly Esther.
We called her Esther. She was Auntie Esther. She's who, went to India and found and met Sri Chinmoy and brought him back to New York and started the whole thing with him. So when I was 12, my parents divorced, and my mom was kind of looking for a new life. And so my aunt encouraged her to move to Ottawa from Toronto and join the center in Ottawa, which is exactly what we did. So my brothers and my dad stayed in Toronto, and my sister and mom and I moved to Ottawa and joined the Sri Chinmoy Center there. So and I was a disciple, quite a devoted disciple. I mean, had a little bit of freedom. We can talk about that later. A little bit of freedom when I was younger, but when I became like 18, I was pretty devoted disciple. So I was in the center until I left at around 30. And then I was still sort of peripherally involved for like about 5 years, and basically until I started getting wind of some things on the internet. Since then, since I left, I started, I went to acting school, and I became a professional actor and in Toronto, and then in theater. And then I moved to Vancouver, and I started working on writing screenplays and acting. And I did quite a lot of acting in Vancouver on a lot of different TV shows and TV movies and movies, and made some films. I made a film called The Workshop Junkie, which was on television for and festivals and did quite well. And then I ended up also as a musician, so I made an album around that time as well. Got involved in some personal growth type of groups, which was really great for me at the time to sort of unwind from the whole, center experience. And eventually I got married, and then I moved to Los Angeles, just sort of on a whim, just because I always was curious about it, what it would be like. And we ended up staying there for 14 years. I don't know how it just went by like that.
Wow.
So I was working on with different screenwriters and developing some projects and just acting and enjoying the LA life, meeting celebrities and stuff.
I think that's where I connected with you. You were in the center. You stayed longer than I did. I left. You stayed in. I remember your mother, Gary Ossie. I remember her very, very well. I liked her a whole lot. And then I think we reconnected when you were out in Los Angeles. And then did you come to
Yeah,
Lindsay? Yeah, you came to Lindsay to visit.
I got a grant from the Canada Council, which is, big government agency here that funds artists. And I got a grant to write a script for sort of my experience growing up in the center. And then I got the National Film Board of Canada involved, and they said, hey, let's do like an exploratory kind of um, thing where I would go and tape, and interview some ex-members, and that's where I met you, and went over to Roger's place in Lindsay, and
in
then
Lindsay, Ontario.
I have you on tape. I have you on tape. It's fantastic. It's going to be part of the documentary.
I don't want to wind up on the cutting floor, if that's what
You
it's.
won't believe me. You will not.
Because you had me on tape and that was I was at Roger's place. I lived in Lindsay for a few years. I was at Roger's place for a while, and that was around 2010 when you came in. And by the way, let's publicize the documentary that you have backing from the Canadian whatever board it is, Nephew of the Universe. And the reason for that, for people just tuning in saying, what's going on? Alo Devi, Harry's aunt, who came from the Sri Aurobindo ashram with Sri Chinmoy, was given the name Alo Devi by Sri Chinmoy, and they were, when I was at the center, they were divine consorts. They were the equal, spiritual father, spiritual mother. In fact, Alo Devi, your aunt, was regarded as being the mother of the universe, and hence you inherited the title Nephew of the Universe. And that's what the documentary is named, is it not?
That's right. That is correct.
Harry, let me interject something here. Do you remember Chayton and I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Because
100%.
Chayton was really devoted to Alo, to your aunt.
Yeah.
And because of that, or maybe not because of that, because I had a real strong connection with Alo.
Yeah.
And it got even stronger after we got married because Chayton was always hanging out with Alo. And I was privileged enough to be a part of that hang, so to speak. And we became very, very close. And there was a real endearment there, even more so than with Sri Chinmoy. I felt a oneness. And to be very honest with you, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we're both Jewish, and there was
Mm.
kind of like a clan thing going on there. I can't
Yeah, well, she
explain
was
how
also
that.
kind of an intellectual too, right? My aunt.
Yes, but I'm not. I'm more of an emotional expression. I'm not an intellectual, but she felt my heart,
Yeah.
and that was the connection. She had a beautiful heart. But the other question I wanted to ask you is, did you ever see Chinmoy's Chaitanya play that he wrote?
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
so you would have
I did.
probably been. I think that was around 74 or 75. You would have been around 14 or 15 by that time, right?
Well, that's right. I might have even been in that play.
I was Lord Garanga. That's why when mention your name, it brings back sweet
Okay.
memories. Yeah. So and the only other person I remember from that play was Bhima. And you know, it was quite an expression because I had to put on a bald skull cap at the time and sit in a boat and sing. And everybody made fun of me, but rightfully so because I looked ridiculous bald. And that's why today I'm hoping that until I leave the planet, leave the body, some of this remains. Anyway, um, so go on with your story about the center and how, w- I mean, because you were so close, being a Hollow's nephew, there had to be, some kind of, discrepancy when you started to hear the bad things, and then she got, shuttled off to Hawaii and everything. Did that have any effect on you?
Well, I was shocked. I mean, you know, the Canadians were very close, like very close to Alo, very devoted to her. And, at one point, somebody took me aside and said, "Hey, I got to tell you something." I can't remember who it was. I think it was another guy in the center, in Ottawa Center. And he said, Alo is not realized like Guru. Um, Basically, they're just pretending that she is. And so I was shocked, but I kind of bought it. Was like, okay, that sort of makes sense. Um, it was disturbing too. Like, I didn't like the sort of whole ruse that happened, where everybody kept trying to, appease her and let her believe that she was, on the same par with Guru. I felt it was very kind of deceptive and, a little bit and nasty, but I bought into it like everybody else, and then the word started spreading around, and eventually everybody knew. So it was really kind of a very devious kind of manipulation, and I think a lot of people felt bad about that. Um, yeah,
Yeah, but you're her nephew. You Before this whole center thing started, you must have spent some family time with her, and she was Auntie Beverly or Auntie Esther.
Esther.
Right, she was Auntie Esther. I don't know if you all did the Jewish holidays together. Uh,
Oh
did you
no,
have?
it was no, it was weird. It was weird. Weird. She never like after she went to India. I was, I guess, was it the first time I met her that I can remember, except for when I was a baby, was we were moving to Israel, my whole family, because my dad was got a job as a war correspondent for CBC and Voice of America in Israel. Um, so on the way there, we went to New York City and we stopped off and we went to a hotel where we met my aunt and Sri Chinmoy. He was just this nice man dressed in a suit. And that's the first time I had actually seen her that I could remember. Um, and by the way, that was a really nice encounter because he gave me like not one but two American chocolate bars, and that just blew my little mind away. So I was like, right away he had me. I was just thinking good things about him when I met him next time when I was 12. But yeah, no, the family thing, like, so after that, we never really had a normal aunt. She was always, up on this sort of pedestal, this Alo, and she never really identified too much. Like, she'd kind of come out of her role a little bit with my sister and I and my mom. But even my mom kind of was like, had to kind of worship her. So no, she didn't participate. She kind of gave up her whole family, and she gave up her, you know, her Jewishness, I guess. Y- yeah, so it was strange. The only real encounters I had with her was in New York. Occasionally we'd go for lunch or something like that, with the family, but that was about it.
Okay, but I'm curious, what your mother and Alo close growing up?
Yeah, they were close. Yeah.
So didn't your mother see uh, that there may have been a little more light in her eyes, but there definitely wasn't a full undercurrent of the divine mother of the universe?
Yeah, well, my mom was interesting because she jumped into the center. She devoted herself. She really loved Guru. She loved the whole center life and experience, but she always had this skepticism, and sort of the part of her could see through things. So she never really bought 100% that Allah was like the mother of the universe. She knew that, she had a lot of neurosis. Like, she grew up in a home that was very neurotic. Their mother was, physically abusive to them. Um, so Alo just kind of escaped. She was the eldest. She had the worst of it, and my mom knew that she had the worst of it. So basically she escaped as quickly as she could and went off to India.
So the Nephew of the Universe film is devoted to um, the whole spiritual path or other things as well.
Well, I put on a show. So I wrote a one-man solo show uh, called Nephew of the Universe, and I had a director in LA, and we put it up. We had the show in the Los Angeles Fringe Festival in 2018. So that is kind of the spine of it. I'm going to put the show up again. I'm working right now on putting the show up again here in Vancouver, and it's going to be filmed. And then that'll sort of be the spine of. So I'm telling my whole story from becoming a disciple until the point when I left, and then the point when I heard about the sex scandals on the internet and kind of left for good. But so that's the spine of the story, and then the rest of it will be interviews with. I'll take the show on the road, so I'll take it to Toronto, to Ottawa, kind of the places where I grew up, and then eventually to New York, and I'll put it on in Queens.
Yeah, you're treading into some waters, baby.
Hey, listen,
But
Harry, if you put it on in Queens, I'm going to come down. Ann and I, and my wife, she's an ex-disciple as well. We'll definitely come down to that. That would be great. Put it on at the auditorium of PS 86.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Old
PS
days.
86.
Just like the old days.
For anybody who doesn't know, was where most of the meetings happened
Right, in Queens, Jamaica, Queens.
in Jamaica, Queens. Yeah.
So it's a docudrama.
No, it's gonna full on documentary, but I guess you could call it a docudrama because I'll be performing part of the story. So yeah, it'll be intercut between me telling the story on stage, and then interviews with ex-disciples, and then also interviews with some experts too, psychologists and um, maybe people who talk about cults and that sort of thing. But the point of my doing this is not. I don't want to sort of demonize Sri Chinmoy or the center. It's like I don't want to do like an expose. Interested in what made us all get into it and stay in it or leave. Like, what was the big attraction? So what were the good parts of it? What were the positive things? And then and then inevitably, what was the negative stuff that came up? For some people, affected them much more than others. For me, I had a pretty good time. I didn't really have too much controversy, but for a lot of people, as you know, it was there was some.
It was
It
traumatic.
affected their lives. Pardon me?
It was traumatic for some people, and for some people like you and me. I mean, I'm also in the camp of like, I had basically a good time. I might have stayed there a few years too long, but basically I had a good time. But then, that's other people have some pretty, hairy stories to tell.
Yeah.
Scary and hairy stories to
I mean,
tell.
I was pretty removed from that stuff because I was treated a little bit special because I was the divine nephew. I had a lot of privileges. I kind of had a pretty long rope.
And hold on, and you were cute. You were a cute kid, and that always helps.
What
Because,
happened? Yeah.
Well, from where to, as the guru would say, from where to where. I got a quick question because I'm very curious about Alo Devi. We know Sri Chinmoy, when he was 12 years old, was an orphan. He went to the Sri Aurobindo ashram. He spent 20, 30, however many years there. How long did Alo, from going from Canada, how long did she spend at the ashram?
I think it was, don't quote me on this, but I think it was about 4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
See, that's what I'm thinking. So in 4 years, so in 4 years, she's like a Westerner, a Canadian. Not, I take it just from what you said, didn't have a whole lot of background in Eastern spirituality or spirituality in general. So in 4 years,
She did go to university. She went to university, and I think she studied either religion or sociology or something like that. Yeah.
right. So in
She had a
4
degree.
years, she went from being a Canadian housewife or whatever she was, a Canadian householder, to becoming the mother of the universe, and that never really kind of sat well with me.
Because
Yeah.
Guru gave her realization is the story. Remember?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they were, yeah. So I guess she was traveling around India for a while and then ended up at the Aurobindo ashram and then met him. We don't know what happened.
We don't know what happened.
Relationship. I kind of think that maybe they had some kind of relationship.
Well, we know they did because somebody visited their apartment when they were living in Brooklyn together, and they were sharing the same bedroom. There was that's been
Yeah.
documented.
Well, that was well hidden from disciples.
Oh, it was totally hidden from disciples.
Yeah, but it's pretty obvious that they were
Pretty obvious.
a thing initially, and that maybe one of the reasons why he found it so hard to ditch her.
And also, let's face it, that was, I'm sure, part of the reason why she was exiled to Hawaii, or she was. I remember when I was there, she'd spend 6 months in Puerto Rico. Oh, what's she doing? Oh, she's scouting some Christmas thing because we know at that point Chinmoy was having sex with quite a few of the girls. So there would be reason for her to be kind of gotten out of the way.
Okay. So you said that Alo was an intellectual, yet she was taken in by the ruse. I mean, she wanted to be this. She was so into the whole spiritual thing that he was able to mesmerize her into believing that she was the mother of the universe. I mean, was her ego that big that she needed that? I mean, I find it, if she was just there for 4 years, and I only say that because you said that Guru gave her realization. But I have to tell you, when I first came to the center and I got my pin that everybody got, I don't know if they did that after a while, but I know Swadine, we all got our little Sri Chinmoy pins when we were accepted as disciples. And I was down at Divine Robe Supreme when it was on the other side of Jamaica Avenue. And when he gave me the pin, he put his hand on my head and the other hand on my heart. And I felt nothing.
Oh.
I wanted to feel something so bad. I was ready for it. I had believed that there was going to be like this thunderbolt of vibration coming through this man to me. And I stood there. Now, I know other people have said they felt a tremendous, thing. But I left Divine Robe Supreme and I was like, wait, I didn't feel anything, you know? And even if I'm a dullard and have absolutely no spiritual essence in me at all, if this guru is so powerful, what happened? Why did I feel something? So I kind of always, it was always kind of like here and there with me with that. And yet with Alo, I felt it's funny. Maybe I transferred it. You know what I mean? I think a
Yeah.
lot of people transferred their own feelings onto
Well,
Sri
sure. I think a
Chinmoy.
lot of it was transference. Yeah. But just to go back to her, she, I think she had a lot of disassociation from growing up with a kind of an abusive. My grandmother turned out to be great, and she was a great grandmother for me, but I guess she was under a lot of stress when she was, bringing up kids. So I think, as my mom told me, she would just disassociate. Like they'd put her to bed. They'd put them to bed at 5 in the afternoon, and they would just lie there and just dream. And, so I think there was Allah was not really totally grounded in reality. And so maybe that's why she was intellectual in that she went to university and she was learned and stuff, but I can see how she could have got drawn into this stuff, just because she was so disassociated from reality.
Did she have like a beat consciousness? Like the '50s uh, beat poets. Was she that kind of an intellectual?
No, I don't think so. I think she was more interested in sociology and just by reading, you know, biographies and that sort of thing. But no, she was never involved in the movement, I don't think. She had, according to my mom, she had one or two boyfriends, which was interesting in college. But my mom was a bit tight-lipped about it too, about what it was really like growing up with her. I think it was just too traumatic for her to talk about.
I feel like uh, re-examining my whole time at the center just uh, through your voice, and I don't usually do that, but I'm glad you joined us today.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. It's fun. It's fun to see you guys because, like I said, you were kind of like uncles. All you guys in New York, I really looked up to you, and Swadine, Gary Swadine. I worked. Guru had me one of the first times I was in New York. He had me go and work one afternoon at Smile of the Beyond. So Swadine, Gary taught me how to scoop ice cream and like leave a big hole in the middle so that you didn't give customer too much.
You don't want to give them too much, but you want to make it. See, I learned a lot in
But
the
it's
sense.
big.
You don't want to give them too much, but you want to make it look like
Exactly.
it's a lot. So that's
Our eyes pop out,
yeah.
but then you're saving money.
I learned
So-
from the best. Love
And
it.
then I was there, in came Carlos Santana
Right,
and his wife,
Debbie,
Irmela, and
Carmilla.
Irmela's sister,
Yeah, Ratna.
Ratna.
Ratna, yeah.
Yeah, and then so I served them ice cream, and then Santana took a liking to me for some reason. I probably because I had no idea who Santana was, and we kind of became friends. We'd hang out every time I came to New York that he was there. We'd hang out. We sit together at the functions. We on Christmas trips. We do stuff together. So I had a nice little friendship with him until he left the group.
By the way, is Devaki your sister?
Yes.
Devaki.
Ah,
Yeah.
Now where's
She's still in
Devaki
the center.
now?
She's still in the center. Her and Vidura, my brother-in-law, are the leaders of the Montreal Center for many years.
Wow, it always blows my mind, because I look at the centers like, oh, that was an interesting experience and part of the spiritual journey. For me, it was the stepping stone to many, many, many other things. But when I look back now, and there are people like Devaki who I knew, and she was like a young, cute woman, cute girl, however she was. How old is she? Older than you or younger? Devaki.
7 years older than me. Yeah.
Okay.
right.
But now these people, Devaki and a lot of other people, are still in the center after like 50, 60 years. And I'm going like, What? How could that be? I'm mystified.
I don't know. It's I guess they've gotten into a lifestyle that they are familiar with, and I would just think like to leave now would just like what are they going to do?
Yeah, now, yeah.
Find a whole new set of friends and learn how to live without
No,
like
no,
all their friends are in the center, and I mean
no.
this Montreal center has like 10 people or something. Um,
Yeah.
Do you talk?
I-
Do you talk with Devaki?
yeah, yeah.
And how does she treat you? I mean, you're not in the center anymore. Does she treat you with brotherly love, with sisterly love?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean we've kind of learned to just not get in each other's way in terms of the center and beliefs, but she'll tell me stuff that's going on in the center, and I respect it, and she respects my choices that I made. I even interviewed her for the documentary.
Great. I can't wait
Yeah.
to see that. So do you have a timeline when it'll be finished? I mean, I really want to see that.
Yeah, it's been a bit of like I started it. I did that thing when I interviewed you back in I guess it was 2009, I think. But
Right.
um and then I kind of just let the project go because actually the story is the National Film Board was really interested. And I told them about my aunt, and they wanted me to get an interview with Alo. So I arranged, so this guru had just passed, and I had arranged to get permission to go to New York so that I could interview Alo. And she was like, "Yes, you can interview me."
Nice.
I'm not gonna, ask you any questions you're not comfortable with. You can even have final edit and yada yada yada. And so I get all this equipment and Ashrita is like on board and anyway, I get to New York and then all of a sudden there's this wall and they're like, and I'm in my hotel room and I'm ready to the next morning to go interview Alo. She said, "Come to the tennis court. You can interview me." And then I get a phone call and she's like, "I'm sorry, but I don't think an interview is gonna be good." And I'm like, "Why not?" She's like, "Well, some of the guys here are telling me that it's probably not a great idea." Um, so anyway, they got to her. So she said, come to the park and let's talk about it." So I go to the park that's next to where the restaurant was,
Anand Brahma.
next to Anand Brahma. And there's Alo and Savisachi and the two British guys. I don't. You probably don't even know them because they might have been after your time. But these two British guys. One of them's a videographer who does who taped a lot of stuff over the years, and they basically said, "Look, we don't think it's a good idea because the wrong message could come out. These documentaries can have a certain point of view that's not favorable to the center and stuff." So they basically shut it down, and I didn't get the interview with Alo. So I had to kind of shelve the project, and now I'm reviving it. And then I did the show, so the show kind of got me back into it, and I figured out a way to do the documentary that made sense, where it's just my story, and I'm just telling my story, but I'm getting other people's points of view along the way. And I really want to explore, just get deep into it. What really happened? Um, um, what was going on with Sri Chinmoy? Like, who was he? How did it all happen?
That's the big question. Who was he? That's the
And
big.
why do we have these experiences? I think is the really interesting thing because you were saying, Stefan, you didn't necessarily have that experience with him, but you had it with Alo, and many of us had kind of profound experiences around Chinmoy. Like there were certainly times when I would just he'd call me up or something and give me something, and then I'd start to go away, and all of a sudden I found that I felt this flood of energy go through me, like a nice positive high energy, and I was just like high for days. And how did that happen? Like, why did that happen? Was that him? Was that some kind of magic hypnotism? But I wasn't expecting it. I'd go get some from a turnaround and then like this. And it happened to me a few times, and I'm sure many other people had experiences. So, it's an interesting question. Was he a wizard? Was he an enlightened man, but with flaws. Who knows?
It's a
Well,
great
I had
question, though. Great question.
I had experiences in meditation when we were in group meditations at the church, um, and I believe that one of the reasons I had those very high meditations uh, was not only because he was there and Allah was there meditating very high, sending out very high vibrations, but for the majority of the people that were in the church, I'm not going to say all of them because some people fell asleep, but there was a good part of the people that were in the church that were really meditating very well, raising the vibration of everything. And I think I just, joined in that big vibrational center. But I have to tell you this about Alo. When Chaitanya got very ill, I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah,
But
she had meningitis. She had meningitis.
Yes, I do. I do sort of
yeah,
remember. Yeah.
yeah, spinal meningitis, and she got very, very ill. And as a matter of fact, during the celebration, I think it was the April 13th celebration, they carried her in to the church, and Guru took one look at her and said, "Get her to the hospital right now," because he said he could see the the specter of death looming right over her, as a being.
Wow.
Okay, and he said, "Get her to the hospital right now," which we did. But when she came home, Alo used to come over to our apartment, and of course, Chaitanya was out of it most of the time, and Alo and I would sit in another room meditating. And she actually would hold my hand, which is very rare for a disciple to do with the spiritual master. But she grabbed my hand, and that whole thing happened. There was this jolt of energy, and I had believed that it was her height and depth that conveyed this to me, and perhaps it was. But again, I believe that there's an energetic force on the planet from the cosmos that if you can access it and you're like a connection with somebody, you will become surcharged. And this happened once or twice when she was over the house. And it was so powerful, much more powerful than my time with Sri Chinmoy.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of it, I'm sure, has to do with my ability to relax when she was around because I felt very comfortable with her.
Yeah.
And even though I treated her as the mother, there was still this kind of soul's intimacy
Mhm.
that I felt with her that I did not feel with Sri Chinmoy. And when Linda, Aradhana, and I left the center, we didn't leave under any dark spell that there was all this stuff going on. We left because we just, it wasn't for us anymore. We fell in love. We had to leave. And, we
Weren't
came
you two
back.
married already in the center?
No.
Okay.
The funny thing is that
She was married to somebody else.
to Lindsay. But when we left, we came back in 1992 for a year with our children. Actually, in 1991, we came back with our children, and we only stayed for a year because at that point the center was nothing more than politics, and the guards were running everything. We would just come to the meditations at PS 86, and really, it was it lost all of its charm, we'll say. And the guards were just like so full of themselves, and the kids, my kids, just they weren't into it at the time, so it wasn't for us. We left, but we never left under the fact that there was anything, hanky panky going on with the guru and anything like that. And then we started to hear the stories. So, I can understand why they didn't want you to interview her, but if they had nothing to hide, why not? Why not sit down with a filmmaker who's related to you and do an interview? So that's very suspect.
It was very disappointing. I also started to feel like that the word started to spread around that I wasn't cool. So all my old friends who were still in the center, I was supposed to interview some other people too, and they started to bow out, and then other people started to like treat me weirdly, and I just started feeling that awful feeling of just like, wow, um, this is not really a loving place. This is a place that's just trying to protect their beliefs at all costs and keep an image of Sri Chinmoy. Why not just be truthful about what's going on? Other spiritual masters have come out and said, yeah, it's true. I was having sex with so and so and disciples, and they admitted it, and and on life went. It's like you're human. So that was disappointing. Also, just one last thing about Olo is I knew she was dying, and she developed pretty bad Alzheimer's, or serious dementia anyway. But I was in Hawaii with my wife's family, and I arranged with Sabyasachi to come over and have lunch with Olo. Now, her other helper, Saraswati, was not really into it, but I always had a good relationship. But I kind of pushed it, like, hey, she's my aunt. I want to see her before she dies. They were trying to talk me out of it, which was weird. But anyway, I flew over to Oahu and Honolulu, and I met up with them in a diner. And my aunt didn't say a word the whole time. She couldn't speak, or she didn't feel comfortable to speak, or they told her not to. I don't know what. It seemed like she was just out of it. But she responded to me nicely. Like, the energy was great. She was smiling at me. She was holding my hand sometimes. And all the while through it, Saraswati was basically berating me, telling me what a bad person I was, that I was against Guru, that I had no right to be with my aunt. And, poor Sabyasachi, who's a great man, was just sort of like listening and, trying to hold space. But, and then at the very end, I have a video of it. We got out and we went into the car, and my aunt just gave me the sweetest smile. She held my hand and gave me the sweetest smile, and that was beautiful. But it was just so revealing, like how they were, even at that point, they were just trying to stop me from just having a relationship with my own aunt.
I'm surprised. So you see, you always believe that spiritual masters are above the fray of physical ill. So it's really not true. I mean, Chinmoy had, I guess, a massive stroke or heart attack, and dropped dead
Yeah.
in his
Well,
bedroom.
he could see with Chaitanya, he could apparently see the spirit or whatever it was coming to take her away, but then he couldn't see it for himself, oddly enough.
Well, hold on.
Yeah, right.
Wait, hold on. Hold on a second. Now, in the case of Chaitanya, let's say he did see the spirit of death or whatever he saw that caused him to say, "Hey, get her to the hospital." Now, there is an account by Sahishnu, a very, very loyal and devoted disciple. I was very surprised that he went public with this story, because it was posted on the internet on Joe Crotch's website, that how Sahishnu, this very, very devoted disciple of Sri Chinmoy, was massaging Guru's legs and feet the night he died from a heart attack. They called it Mahasamadhi, but that's, again, more center bullshit. Okay. And he said he was shocked because as he was massaging his feet, Guru looked up at some apparition or whatever he saw, and he said he never in his life saw such fear in Guru's eyes, and his so he must have seen something, whatever it was, just the way he saw something, apparently very much so, with Chaitanya. So he must have been tuned into some astral or something going on psychically, because that apparition or whatever it was scared the shit out of him. And this is a loyal disciple. I'm surprised they let that story get out. So he was Mahasamadhi.
Well, the story very much changed. When I first heard about it, he had a heart attack, and everybody's like, "Oh, he had a heart attack, massive heart attack." And then later on, the mythology came out about the Mahasamadhi and that he knew about it, and
it always happens.
He didn't leave any instructions.
Yeah.
He left no instructions for anybody. He clearly did not know he was dying. He didn't leave.
If he was taking Mahasamadhi, he would have gotten everything in, all the ducks in a row. I'm taking Mahasamadhi, and this is the way I want the center to run. But he did say one significant thing, because I was there when he said this prior to my leaving. I left in 1980, so this must have happened sometimes in the 1970s. He was there, and somebody asked him, I think it was Nami, "Well, Guru, what's going to happen like when you go?" He said, "That's it. I'm not leaving anybody in charge." Like, because there was some talk about, Lex Hickson Purushottama, because Guru did recognize of all the disciples in the center, only one that I ever heard Guru acknowledging some kind of enlightenment, to some degree of enlightenment. He said Lex Hickson had some light in his mind or whatever. So there was some speculation saying, well, when Guru goes, who's going to be the Dharma heir, right? Because always, you hand the Dharma tool down. So you, the nephew, the universe. But here's the thing. He said, no, when I go, that's it. This whole thing is going to like blow up or something. Like, he's not leaving anybody. So he didn't live, but he didn't leave anything, any instructions or anything, or anybody in charge. Ranjana, I guess, just inherited the role.
Well, here's the other thing. When Chaitanya was ill, he thought that he was going to be able to take away her illness. I mean, he came to the house. He went to the hospital with Alo to visit her, and he gave this impression. Not that he had said it, but he gave this impression that he's got everything under control. Mm-hmm. So when she showed up at the church on that stretcher and he looked out at her, now I think he had some connection with those astral, with the demons in the astral plane.
Assurers.
The Assurers. Right.
And there's some theory, and it's a theory that, like the Assurers got to him and kind of took over his thing, because he wasn't running the show there. He had diabetes. I heard from Ann, who was there long night. He could hardly move at the end of the day. He couldn't move. He had diabetes. He was grossly overweight.
Arthritis.
So he was not in charge of his show. That's for sure.
No, he was not in charge of his show, and it's pretty clear that the road at the end did not leave him in great straits.
And that's what blows my mind about the disciples. They're oblivious to all this, and then of course when the guru or the saint dies, then there's all the mythology. Oh, he took Mahasamadhi. No, he didn't. He fucking died of a heart attack. Now just wake up. I don't understand how people can, in the face of in the face of all the testimonials to his sexual activities, how they still, oh no, he could never do that. I don't know what these people are thinking.
Well, here's the thing, Gary. I'm sure somebody from the center is going to see this podcast.
I hope so.
Okay.
And wake the fuck up is my
exactly. Get straight with this.
And let's swing back to Alo Devi for a second. One thing that I always wondered about Alo Devi, I was there the night when Guru was sitting on his throne in high meditation, and we were there were about 30 of us at the house for some reason. Who knows? He had a lot of private things going on with different people. And she said, "I'm about to tell you something." And she came out she was there meditating with him, and then she stood up and she came before us and she said, "Listen, this is only for you, people, but I have to tell you that Guru is the Kalki avatar. In other words, the final incarnation of Vishnu. In Hinduism, there's this, they got the 10 avatars, and Kalki is the last one." And she said, he is, and she was completely serious. And I'm thinking now, in retrospect, like, did she really believe that? I mean, what? I mean, all this stuff blows my mind because you join it. Look, a lot of people join cults, a lot of people, and then a lot of people, like the three of us and other many others that we know, at certain point, like the red flags go off, or they wake up, or they move on, and they get out, and then say, "Well, it was, I said it was a good experience for me. Hey, I wasn't abused, blah blah blah." But what blows my mind is people, they never dawns on them.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
Well, what's sad to me is that I didn't realize until I left, and after a while, after I left, that I just didn't have the freedom to think for myself. When I tried a couple of times to leave, and the first time I got called back to New York, and Guru wanted to see me, and everybody, my sister and everybody said, just give him a chance, go back, talk to him. So I went to New York, and he basically kind of like said, listen, I'll give you as much rope as you want. Like you wanna have a band like your friend Devadeep, Carlos Santana, have a band. He kind of implied like if I wanted to have sexual relation, he didn't say it as much, but he was kind of like, like referring to other people that, you fall down, you get up again. Is the way he put it. The way he put it. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to have, my whole thing is I wanted to have a relationship. Like I wanted to actually have a relationship with a woman and see what that was like. And he's like, oh, well, no, but if you fall down, you get up again. Just stay in the boat. He said, basically, just stay in the boat. Stay in the boat. Whatever you do, don't leave the boat. So I was like, okay, well, that sounds okay. Like I can sort of have my cake and eat it too. And then I tried it for about a year, and like I kind of had my feet in both places, and it just felt so um it just felt wrong, and I couldn't do it. So I left the second time.
My whole orientation, like in these podcasts and these interviews, my real interest is the people who stayed in the center are of no interest to me, because to me, I just can't fathom them. I can't fathom what's going on with them. But what interests me is people like myself, like Stefan, like you, who leave the center. What happens then? Some continue their spiritual journey, some apparently don't. So what describe your spiritual journey, because you mentioned taking some self-improvement courses and stuff like that. Describe your spiritual journey after you left the center.
Yeah. Well, it's always stuck with me. So I think when you experience meditation and some higher states of consciousness, and it really it sticks with you. So I never stopped meditating. I kept meditating for several years on the picture, on the transcendental photo. In fact, when I had my first sort of live-in girlfriend, I had a little meditation room up in the attic, and I had the picture kind of hidden. So I'd take it out because I didn't want to. I'd take it out and meditate on it. And one time I was downstairs and I heard this scream, and then my girlfriend came down with the picture. She said, "What the fuck is this?" And it totally freaked her out because it's a scary picture. But anyway, I kept meditating. Um, I think my belief system was still pretty much in uh, the things that I was taught in the center, you know, kind of a mixture of the Eastern mysticism and Buddhism and that sort of thing. But I think when I went to acting school, I started to get into my body. We were doing exercises that were about emotions, and I was emotionally still like 12 years old. So I didn't know how to do that. And through acting school, I learned to express and to open up and find different parts of myself. And that was a big revelation. And then when I was in Vancouver, I took a workshop called the Mastery of Self-Expression, and that was really about digging down to the things that block you, and um, and also just what keeps you from expressing yourself fully. So I started getting in. I got into personal growth. I did that workshop, and then I got into personal growth, and I started doing a lot of personal growth workshops, and that sort of became part of my spiritual journey as well. But I'd never done anything formal, so now you know, I'm very leery of any leader of any group, even a personal growth group that has guru type tendencies. I'm very leery of that, and of any path or anything like that where there's a leader that's sort of a charismatic leader that has the ability to tell you how to think. So I take spirituality from different places. I really a lot into the Course in Miracles, um, Nisargadatta. I take everywhere from anything that seems genuine and that inspires me. I'll still even read some old Aurobindo stuff, and um, yeah, I just like it's to me, it's basically all up to me, and the universe is there to support me in whatever spiritual endeavor I have. But I do believe that that's sort of the point of life is to, become more and more. I don't know if enlightened is the word, but more and more, uh, I guess, less and less egocentric.
But that's a very evolved state of mind. I mean, I think that there are more people out there now that have realized that they don't need a charismatic leader in order to find whatever it is they're looking for. And at the same time, have a feeling that there is something bigger than just their ego self. And, they're seeking and they're finding, and they're seeking and they're
Yeah.
finding.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful space to be in. So, the cult will start to drop down and the individual will start to flourish more and
Yeah.
offer much more in that area. Yeah, beautiful.
So I get how the cult experience or the leader, how attractive it is, because you get into this world and you're surrounded by people who believe the same thing you believe. You think you're on top of the world. You think you've got sort of the key that other people don't have. I mean, I remember feeling that in the center many times, like, you know, 100 of us in an airport all dressed in whites and saris and the guru there. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like, we got it here. We figured it out. Everybody else is still struggling here and suffering, but we got it. And that's very attractive. But then inevitably it turns sour because the leader really doesn't have control over their ego. And so they try to make you think how they want you to think, and manipulate you in all kinds of ways. Sexually is one of the worst, but just the mind control. So I get the attractiveness of it, but ultimately you're missing out of real life experience and of just being in command of your own self and of truly growing if you're stuck in that cult experience. And you're not going to get anything from anybody else. You're not going to get anything from anybody else.
Maybe that's what happened to your aunt.
Yeah.
Maybe because your grandmother was, I don't want to use the word abusive, but it treated Alo so poorly. Maybe her whole thing was just like beaten down. And when she went to India and found Sri Chinmoy, there was this positivity that built her back up again. And once Sri Chinmoy crowned her, anointed her the mother of the universe, uh she got lost in that whole, you know,
Yeah.
state of mind. Really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hoping if anybody out there watching this has any interesting footage that maybe ex-disciples of Sri Chinmoy who took footage, they can contact me because I would like to have, as much original footage as I can get my hands on.
we've had a couple of ex-disciples on, but this is really the first time we've done that. Someone allowed us to explore a little further into the whole nuanced stage of uh, the Sri Chinmoy Center. And of course, you being so close, to the owner of the business, so to speak,
Yeah.
have really given us some food for thought. It's really been wonderful.
Harry, since you and I are both involved in acting, which I love, is my favorite thing. I'm getting ready for a big audition, and I noticed in the beginning you said your wife was filming you. What are you auditioning for?
Oh, today I was auditioning for I guess it's actually a Hallmark mystery or fantasy, a Hallmark fantasy. They do a lot of Hallmark stuff here in Vancouver. But I've been auditioning for lots of different shows, American shows. Um, I just got an audition also for like a sci-fi movie that I have to put on tape in the next few days.
Yeah.
So film and TV stuff.
And you think you might be moving, or you will be moving back to LA at some point, because that's where I guess a lot of the action.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is because I'm an American citizen too. I'm a dual citizen, so I, I went to LA and I got my visa and I got my green card and then I got citizenship. So I'm free to go back and forth. So I'd like to be back and forth.
The best of both worlds. That's what I like. That's what I like too. And acting certainly provides one of those.
Yes. Well, we didn't talk about it, but we talked a little bit about it in your interview, Gary, but the acting and performing and comedy was such a big part for me and for you in the center. And that's what kept me going. I mean, I really got an opportunity to shine and do kind of whatever I wanted. Um, and so that was, and then,
Yeah.
I got inspired by you, Gary, and your comedy and other guys who did that, the Agony Brothers and
The Acne Brothers, right? The Swanson Brothers,
Swanson Brothers.
they were great.
And we carried it on, and we kept, after you guys left, we kept doing stuff, plays and skits. And the guru would, I'd go to New York, and the guru would say, "Hey," he'd call me over to go, "Put on something tonight." So I'd have to go get my buddy Utal, and we'd have to figure something out. And in a few hours, we're doing a skit on stage. So that was a good.
No, we have to acknowledge the center. Let's face it. We what we want to do here is let it all hang out: the good, the bad, the ugly. Certainly,
Absolutely.
the center, we have to acknowledge the center. Certainly launched my career. I never did any of that stuff, and next thing I know, I'm doing stand-up comedy. We're doing skits. We're doing plays. Same with you. And we were there was a group of people like we mentioned, the Agony Brothers, the Swanson Brothers, me, Abaddon. You would always, we were there, that we always be on tap to put something on, and you have to get out and do it. And but I want to say this. One reason, and this goes back to something Stefan was saying just a little while ago, having you on allowed us to bring more of the real inner workings of the center, because a lot of times people, ex-disciples, and I can understand it, they don't want to talk about the unpleasant stuff, and we don't want to press, and we're not out to bash the guru or the center. We all acknowledge we had some great experiences there. Certainly, I am never unmindful of that. But let's face it, if someone is seeking the truth, they want the whole story. Not just the good stuff, not just the bad stuff, but the whole complete story. And I think that with you, we're getting more to the fullness of the whole thing. So that's really great. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your candor. Tell it like it is. That's my motto. Just tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Well,
the chips fall where they may.
it just goes to show you there's life after cult, and plenty of life after cult. So that's what this is all about. People can still have a spiritual life after they leave the cult, and it doesn't have to.
You won't go to hell. You won't go to hell, and you won't get cancer, and you won't. Well,
Your next
It
incarnation.
won't be because of that.
Your next incarnation, the curse of the guru. The guru did some blessings, and he launched some some big curses. But yeah, I'll tell you, that is part of what our purpose is here, to show people, like, hey, your life doesn't end because you leave your guru. Your life goes on, and in our case, it flourishes.
Yeah.
My life is
Yeah.
flourishing. Stefan's flourishing. You're flourishing, and I know a lot of other ethna. It's flourishing. A lot of people. It's like, oh, if you leave the cult, you're gonna wind up with cancer. You're gonna die. You're gonna get hit by it. No, 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 no.
Those are all just fear technique. Fear
And that's
technique.
why I think a lot of people are still there because of there's a certain fear element, like,
Oh yeah,
oh,
it's
what's going
deeply
to happen?
embedded into you. That's why there's so much fear of leaving.
Fear.
Yeah, but it's not true.
Not true. Not true.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you guys are doing. It's great that you're bringing this to everybody, and
Right.
yeah, good work. Good work you're doing.
And you're doing great work too. I want to see that film. And I want to see, don't cut me out.
You're definitely not going to be cut out, Gary. You're not going to be cut out.
Okay, so can we post a link to your IMDb page so people can
Yeah.
see all about you?
Sure.
And anything else that you have that you want us to link to? Perhaps there's something on we can find you on Netflix, Amazon, or HBO, or Apple
Yeah.
TV, or
I appear in things here and there, and you might see me on some show on Netflix or regular TV, or I'll guest stars and that sort of thing. But I'll send a link to my movie that I did years ago, The Workshop Junkie. It's really funny. It's a half
that'd be
hour,
great.
and
Yeah, I want to
it's
see that.
super entertaining. Yeah, I wrote, directed it, and starred in it. Right, the phase of raising some initial funds so that I can do a proper edit my demo and use that then to get further funding. So I'm applying to all these different agencies here in Canada, which are great. And then I'll put up the show, and then I hope to be filming the rest of the documentary in the fall. So I'll probably end up again in maybe in your area, Gary, in New York. And where do you live, Stefan? Are you in?
I'm in Montpelier, Vermont.
Oh, in Vermont. Nice,
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, it's really nice. Cold,
Listen,
very cold.
If you come to New York City, I live upstate, but I'll come down. I'll come down if you're going to be in the city. I'll come down to meet you, see you.
Well, if you come to are you are you going to continue doing interviews when you come to New York? Is that what your plan was?
Yeah, I intend to do some interviews for sure. So I could interview you. I could maybe do another interview with Gary. And I want to see if I can interview Jayanti, if you remember her. She wrote the
Oh
book.
yeah,
She
She'd be
wrote
great.
the book. She wrote that book.
Maybe
Growing up cult.
Lavanya would be good because she was so right in there.
Lavanya would be great because if anybody was an insider,
Yeah,
it doesn't get any, except for Ranjan, or perhaps it doesn't get any more of an insider than Lavanya. That would be quite a coup.
Here's the thing: we're posted on all of the Facebook groups that are connected with the Sri Chinmoy Center that are ex-disciples. So anybody that's on those Facebook pages will see our podcast. And we told everybody, as we will do right now, it's an open invitation. If you want to come on our podcast and talk about your spiritual experience, and it doesn't have to be, a whole hour and a half or 2 hours about how bad the center was for you. You can talk about what's happening now in your spiritual life. We would love to have you. So, Lavanya, if you watch this and you want to come on and talk about it, and you can talk about anything you want, but here's the offer. And anybody else that's out there, if you want to talk about your spiritual life, come on down, and we'll just spend an hour and a half.
Interesting to have on would be Shambhu, because Shambhu is kind of like very, lives in both worlds. Like he can, in my experience anyway, he's sort of he's still devoted to the center in some ways, but he also sees certain things about it, and he's also got this, interesting music, very successful new age music.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
I-
So I'll reach. You know what, Shambu, I'm reaching out to you now. You want to come on our podcast, talk about your music, talk about the center, your spiritual life?
He's a good
Here's the
friend.
invitation.
Okay, if you're going to reach out to Shambu, I'm going to reach out to Ranjana. Ranjana, if you're out there, I'd love to talk to you. And we're not going to ask any embarrassing questions. We want you. We just want to, and Savia Sachi, all these people. Ashrita, come on.
Yeah, Shrita, if you want to come on and talk about the center, we will treat you with full respect. Ranjana, come on down. The price is right.
Well, guys, say hello to Linda. I remember her well. I really liked her. She was like an auntie to me too. And say hi to Anne.
And she's listening upstairs. Yes.
Brave woman. And it's been a real pleasure.
It has been a real pleasure.
It's been great. And I'm glad we could talk openly and without any kind of like, I better not bring this up. No, we're open. It's great. And I think this is part of being an actor, being a performer. You're out there, you're open, you're vulnerable, you're letting it all hang out. That's why I love acting. Say hi to Devaki, because I used to like Devaki so
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
Say hi.
love Devaki.
Hi. Nothing
She's
else.
great. She'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Gariasi, I love Gariasi and Devaki. They were so cute. Okay.
Later. Peace.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Om.
Yeah. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti.
Oh, give me an ohm.
All right. That was Garanga, Harry, Rob Bruner, aka the nephew of the universe.
That was a really great hour and a half, whatever we had. I found that very interesting. And although I didn't spend that much time with him when we were in the center, I really enjoyed this.
It's really great. Yeah, I tell you, Rob, that whole family was great. Rob, Garanga, his name was, then Devaki and Gariasi and Alo Devi. I mean, I was kind of fond of Alo Devi too. She was always very sweet to me. I have no issues with her. I mean, really.
Well, what's interesting is as much as I saw her good side, I saw her other side too.
Byron, our friend Byron, who lives in Indonesia, said the same thing to me. He said he saw her, especially in Japan when they were there. And I must say, I never saw her bad side or shadow or anything like that. I never did. But well,
It wasn't a bad side. It wasn't a bad side. It was she was the corraler of all the people. She made sure that everybody was kept in line while she still had that power. And if she saw something that she didn't like, she came down off that avatar pedestal and let you have it. So there was that movement in between the divine, the sublime, and the earthly woman, school mom who made sure that all the class was stayed in line, so.
It was great having Rob. Do we know who we're having next? Do we know?
Yes, we're having Marion, your astrologer, on next.
Marion Tortorella. That's right. We're having her on the 28th. Okay, so stay tuned. We're talking to ex-disciples, but we're talking to other people, people from different spiritual traditions or in the case of Marion, astrologers. We're talking to interesting people. That's what we want. Interesting people who have interesting stories about their journey on the spiritual path or whatever path they want to describe.
Okay, that's it.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.